Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Enrique Castro, and you are tuning in to the What's in Your Case podcast. Our guest today is a self-taught pianist, composer, and singer-songwriter. From the 607 going here, there, and everywhere, unfiltered and lit off the vibes while also claiming to be the vibe. My guest to kick off season 2 of the What's in Your Case podcast, Alexandra the Author.
Thanks so much for having me on here.
So, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your backstory. How did you become Alexandra the Author?
You already shouted out the 607. So I'm originally from upstate New York. This awesome little town called Ithaca. A lot of people know about it, but if you've ever seen Road Trip, that is where Road Trip was filmed. If you've ever heard of Cornell University, that is Big Red, that is us, or Ithaca College, that is also us. I currently live in Santa Cruz, California. It's a very opposite kind of polar town from there. So fun fact about me is I'm adopted. My adopted parents are white. I am Chinese and Jamaican. I'm number 4 out of 9 kids in my family. So I'm the 4th oldest, and my parents have adopted 7 of us. So I grew up in a family, it's a tribe, but you're getting all these different people from different ethnicities and different cultures and it's all one family. Never didn't feel like it wasn't my family. However, growing up with tons of different genetic backgrounds, you realize you're kind of not the same. My family is extremely academic, very high studious. Both my parents are lawyers. We produce a lot of lawyers in my family. And I kind of just didn't really have a way, I understood what everybody was saying, but it didn't really make sense, if that makes sense. And for me, what did make sense though, was I could completely understand everybody's pitch and tone of voice. That was something that I really hyper focused on, was when the words, when the terminology was just too big for me to understand, I could understand what everybody was saying based off the way that the pitches went in their voice. And I also understood at a very young age that just because you were saying something did not match up to what I perceived, or at the time I was this doesn't match the emotion that I'm receiving from you. Now, obviously me getting older, understanding this is my empathy, this is me being passionate, this is me being emotionally intelligent and in tune. But because of that, I was super in tune with the way that people change the voices and the sounds, and literally listening to how people emoted, not matching necessarily the words to the vocal tones and the pitches. That was a super hyper focus of mine as a child, and also still now, to better have understanding in what people were trying to communicate, because I didn't understand anything. To me, it really felt like I could get the words, I can produce this sentence, and I just didn't understand. But what I did understand, and what I still do understand, tone, is pitch, is the emotion behind, or body language. All that stuff is stuff I did understand. So I always hummed. It was a coping mechanism. It was just how I kind of rolled everything together. I did some light choir work growing up. And of course, I always just loved to sing. But that was kind of just how Alexandra is sound, right? Alexandra is music. Alexandra is emotionally understanding other people. Alexandra is compassion and empathy. And that is how I use to connect with people and understand connection, is completely through vibrational sounds and pitches and tones. And then the author, right? Then the other side of that, and that's just me. I'm a single mom. I had my son when I was 19. That's when I moved to California. And at that time, I was with my son's father, and I knew I had to leave. I was leaving some domestic abusive relationship. So I really had to grab my kid and leave based off what it was. And I turned and looked and never came back. But in that time, then, I'm 22 with a brand new 3-year-old. I've never lived outside of my parents' house before. Now I'm going across the country. And I had so much emotion. It was what when people go to college, which is something that I didn't do. I just had a baby instead. I feel like there's this rite of passage where you go or whatever. And for me, that was moving across the country with a 3-year-old at 22 by myself, and just randomly ending up in San Francisco where my brother was, and then moving to Santa Cruz because I needed a place to just be. And I had no idea what to do with the amount of profound sadness that I had collected. And it was the first time in my life that I had space to be with myself and by myself, to be able to like freely express it. I've been living with like 11 people in my house my whole life, and this was a time that I could be like, I got a 3-year-old, he's asleep by 8, and I had time. I had nothing but time and myself and a lot of pain, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I just literally started emoting, started just singing and started creating that, and that's kind of how I created my first album. And I didn't know how it was going to come out, and so I just did a lot of vocal recordings on my phone of just me really being in pain. I would like stand there, and one day I would just like be crying. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. And then, you let it out. And then after you let it out, it's like the good cry, you listen to it, you come back and you're like, okay, I'm like, clear my sniffs up and I'm going to listen to it. So I'm like, okay, part of this isn't bad. It's actually kind of good. And then I carve it out. That's like, I give myself my own clay and I start carving it out. And so that's kind of like where the actual construction of songs happened, was kind of right after I left and did that. But I didn't perform until actually COVID. So there was like little steps, there's like me being me, which Alexandra came, and then the author, which was like this deep pain of my family having to switch and having to like make a decision as like a mom and for what's best for us. And that was just pain that needed to come out. And then I guess the real presence of me and the albums came out during COVID, again, single mom. And right before COVID, I was cleaning houses. I was a housekeeper, and my son's epileptic, and then COVID happened, and I was one of those unlucky people who didn't get like any stimulus checks or anything, unemployment. And I'm like here doing the stuff at home. I'm racking up so much money that I'm being like evicted. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, you got to sit at home because you got to take care of your kid. You can't go outside, and you got to school your kid. And I was like, girl, you got this voice. You better sing. And so I started singing. I had no intention of, even when I created the songs and the album, of actually ever like performing. Of course, in my head, I dreamed one day, like, yeah, maybe, but it wasn't really serious. It wasn't until I actually had to make money to provide for my family. I mean, it was really like girl, you ain't got nothing. Like, all we had was computer screens. So I didn't have anything except for like my literal voice to be able to provide for me and my kid. And it did unbelievably, but it also then ended up into this huge whirlwind of like me dealing with live stream audio visual teams who were doing live streams around venues around the Bay Area. And I kind of just helped with media. I just found places that I could like fit in that were still happening during COVID, that also allowed maybe music or connections. And because I kind of got to go around tons of venues and kind of help other artists during COVID, and really came in more as of like a help crew than actually a performer, it kind of just opened the door to people wanting to like know about me, wanting me around, and I just utilized that. And that's kind of how Alexandra the Author was born into like what I am today. It was like lots of little pieces, but at the very end it was a push because we had to, and then it was kind of just shown to me that it's who I am. So that's an extensive answer for a short question, but yeah.
Nice, because I was wondering, because your first post on Instagram is January 25th, 2021. So it sounds like you had cultivated it during the pandemic, and there were a lot of these outlets that you were doing online even before your first Instagram post.
Yeah, I would just, I would hit up like churches. Everything was online. And I know a lot of musicians during that time actually like fell short, but it was funny for me. It was the exact opposite, because I was so like, I wasn't even prepared to do this. It was just something that like really ended up being part of my plan. And then it was for me super perfect. So probably seeing me now, if anybody's seen me now, they don't look at me, oh my God, you have stage fright. I have horrible stage fright. And I always had it. And so I didn't think that performing was like a thing that I was going to be able to do. But it worked out well, because during COVID, nobody was in those venues. So it's like I got to go into all these venues with like camera crew, like full sound and everything, but no people. And in some really great venues, like the Fox Theater was one of my favorite places to be, where it's just like completely dead and you just have camera crew and like sound there. And so I got to stand in all these amazing venues and just know the space, right? And feel comfortable before bringing in the people. And I got to do that for like a whole year and a half, like around the Bay Area, which was cool because I'd never been in this industry like that before. And I got to just do it that way. And then the people came, and it was really cool for me, because it's like, you got to try things on before people there, where I feel a lot of other artists, that's the luxury that I got from COVID, is a lot of people, you just get thrown up there. There's people in the stage and you make it work. But I got to do that whole thing before. And so I really got to be comfortable before I even brought in people. So once the people came in, it was like nothing because I'm like, I already was visualizing you in the space.
And then I see that you play piano. How many instruments do you actually play?
I guess I can just say the piano. I taught myself how to play the piano. I can pick a guitar up and like make something, right? Like I can. Don't ask me about notes. And then I'm really good with and I'm really good with a percussion instrument as well too. Pretty much any hand drum you got, I'm gonna be able to stay on beat with that. And like, yeah, a guitar, I could pick up a guitar or ukulele and write a song, but I wouldn't really say like I know it. Like, do not hire me for for like an acoustic guitar set. No, we will spend it clapping and snapping.
And a big question that I like to ask my guest is whether or not you name your instruments. And if you do name your instruments, what are their names?
I do. So I have like 5 pianos. They all have had different purposes. My first piano that I wrote my first album on was actually a Casio that my dad bought for $1 at a garage sale. Her name is Lola, and she has one key that is broken, and I have absolutely no idea why her name was Lola, but it just kind of fit, and that is kind of like what it is. And then my current piano, my Yamaha, my 88 keys that I use regularly for performing, her name is Pauline, and her name is Pauline because my best friend's middle name is Pauline, and I just felt like she would have been so irritated. She's just so irritated at me for naming my piano Pauline, but I love that woman. Love her dearly, and I feel like a true best friend would do some shit like that. And I really am. So I had to name her Pauline. I'll call her up and I'd be like, Pauline really gave it to me today. She's like, okay, God. And it just makes you smile. It makes your best friend smile. And my piano is like one of my best friends too, as corny as it sounds. But yeah, Pauline. And then a few of my other instruments. I have this other old school piano. I don't even actually know what kind it is, but it's a keyboard as well. I just call that little big bass, and I call that little big bass because my good friend Tovin, who is the owner of Invertebrate Records, Shanty Shack Studios over here in Santa Cruz, and then also does stuff out of LA. He's amazing. He's phenomenal. I highly suggest anybody, even yourself, to go check them out. Awesome band, Octastrange. He was actually a big part of my push and the things that I'm doing, but he gave me that piano, and he calls me sometimes Little Sing Song Bird. I call him Big Bass, and so that's kind of where that name came from. He's a phenomenal bass player as well. Yeah, everything else is kind of just like miscellaneous names, but those ones, Big Bass, Lola, and Pauline, are very real and named in my life.
Now, in my research, you did several posts that revolve around rest. Rest of the body, rest of the mind, rest of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, how important is it for rest when it comes to creativity of an artist?
Oh my goodness. I think rest, regardless of just being an artist, being human, if you are human, this is a PSA announcement to take some rest because life is hard and we go through so much. There's not really enough time with being able to survive and who we are to be able to process everything. So rest is something that's really hard for me, and I've had to work really hard to discipline myself to give myself rest or a break, or to be selfish enough to say that I need help to give myself a rest, because I feel that not only me, and this is things that I've learned from myself, but from friends, from colleagues, from reading, that we are hard on ourselves. And not only do we give ourselves sometimes really strong, unreal expectations, but the world does as well. And we need to be able to give ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually rest from those expectations. I find it extremely important. I find it so important that I have to actually put like a timer on my phone to give myself rest. It's important to remind yourself to take care of yourself. I am really good at being a mom. I'm a great mom, but I'm not always a great mom to myself. And I haven't been a great mom to myself. I haven't always been the greatest me to myself. And I find that sometimes I'm not the only person in the room who can relate to that when I say that. I think that there's so many things that we think we have to do or need to be done at X amount of time. Oh, this paper, or this file, or this, all the things. But the thing is that we can't really be here and be our best selves and show up for the things that we really need to if we don't give our bodies what they need. So I think rest is probably the most, right next to water and oxygen and a good toilet, a good plumbing system. It is so high on there. I loudly advocate for the humans to give yourself at least 40 minutes of rest. I don't know what that looks like for you, what that sounds like, what that feels like, but I find it imperative, almost to be a pandemic, that we give ourselves, or whatever, deprivation of depriving ourselves of rest, of a break, is a very real pandemic that has been going on for a very long time. And that trumps big into my advocacy for mental health. Also, like, a big reason why I put my music out too in a weird kind of juxtaposited way is it was me giving myself a break. I have this one song called Talking Shit, which is my number one song. Everybody requests it when I sing it. And it's kind of give yourself a rest, give yourself a break. Let yourself be open, let yourself cry, let yourself talk your shit. It's okay. That is so important. That's the core of me. How are you going to treat yourself the way others want to be treated if you can't, if you can't even treat yourself? How can you not? So you need to rest. That body needs rest. That body is so amazing. It needs rest. So I think it's extremely important. I think extremely important to rest. I'm not good at it, but I'm getting better every day.
November 16th, 2021, you were featured on the song Home by, is it Alwa Gordon?
It is, yes.
And I noticed that you and this artist continue to work together on several songs throughout the years. But how did the first opportunity for you to work together come to be?
I have a friend whose name is Mike Molda. He has an audio visual company, amazing guy. It's called Creative Minds Audio Visual. Everybody should check them out, tap them in, amazing. But he is one of the people who is very serious about believing in me and my talent, and has always been an entrepreneur of pushing me and his friends and his artistry. He messaged me one day and was like, "Oh, you gotta meet this guy, Alwa, man. I've known him forever. He has known Alwa forever." And I kept getting messages to meet this guy, But I really trust this guy, Mike. And one day this guy, Mike, sends me over his post, on Instagram, in a message that this guy always looking for somebody to put vocals down on a song. And I was like, whatever. This people have been bugging me enough about this, so I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna connect with him. I go over. I tell him, hey, I'm free tonight. I can do the vocals. Message him. He's like, great. Show up at my house. We'll lay down the vocals. I don't know this guy, and I'm like, okay, cool. As a female, I've had many very interesting experiences in studios with men by myself. Not always the best. Whatever. And I'm always just a little skeptical. I'm going to somebody's house. I'm just like, all right. So I go over to his house, and I instantly notice, I walk in there, this man is a father, a single father. I didn't know this before. I'm a single mom. So already I feel great because there's a bunch of pink shit all over his house. And I'm like, he's a girl dad. Lit. Go in, sit down. But it was instantaneous. I haven't had chemistry, I don't think, ever that good in my life. First of all, we just meshed really well. I felt completely able to be exactly who I was. I know I've heard people talk about connections like that, or somebody that you just meet and it feels like, boom, you know them forever and it just works. But until I met him, I actually hadn't experienced that. Genuinely. It was so easy to work with him. He'd have beats, and I do most of my stuff on my piano, and he'd be like, hey, yo, can you hop on this track for me? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And it would just be able to record it right in his house. It was easy. He lives close to me. I'd be able to bring my son. So it really worked for exactly the way my life was. His daughters play with my son over there. I'm recording a track. I can lead. It's cool. It's great. I'm super respected. Hands down, one of my biggest supporters. Hands down. And at this point, one of my best friends in this lovely 3-year friendship business development as well. He's a good push, he knows exactly where my voice is going to sound good, and the connections that he's given me support wise, or how he's tapped me into other people, and just our shows, we are definitely a favorite duo to perform. Just if I'm doing something, you're doing, and if I get paid, he'd be like, he always makes sure he gives me whatever he gets from a pay, even if I'm doing one song. So he's a phenomenal artist himself, the way he pushes, the way he's just always spitting his content, always doing his thing. I definitely suggest you highly to also look up Alwa Gordon. I'm dropping great names here just to let everybody know. Tobin Pursley, Mike Molda, Alwa Gordon, all phenomenal people.
November 23rd, 2021, you posted what was either a tweet or some Facebook posts by Jake Skinkle, where he talked about how he is a producer, is annoyed whenever he's offered a job, but instead of being compensated, it's for exposure. What are your thoughts on that kind of situation?
I've had to learn some lessons with that. I think that every artist will, first of all, is well within their right to deny or accept whatever type of situation they want paid, or, sometimes I'll take a gig that's not going to pay me at all, but it's just because it's in a good place, Sometimes the money is not worth, it's not even worth the money, but the connections are, the space and the place. I completely agree with that. It is not always about the money. Don't get me wrong. There's some places where it is because I need to get my paid and I'm like, where I need something compensated or travel or whatever it is. And that's just respect. Also respect on the art. However, though, it is an artist game and connections are very real and a necessity. You need to get out in different networks and different platforms. So being able to have new exposure is equally as important as it is to get a paycheck that is the value of your worth.
And then October 27th, 2022, you posted an advertising for a show on November 8th, 2022, that you called your last show. Was that for advertising purposes, or was there more to the last show?
About a month prior to that, I actually had gotten ran over by a car. And I had a fractured spine. I had a pretty bad concussion and some other, I had a fractured ankle. I've been ran over by a car. So I was pretty bruised and busted. And one of the biggest things to having a fractured tailbone, which I did not know, is extremely hard to sit down. And so for me, I couldn't play the piano anymore. I couldn't even do it standing, which really sucked because the way that I kind of sit, the way I kind of hold myself when I stand, it's popped out on one hip so I can, everybody has their thing. But the way I stood was extremely painful and it was extremely uncomfortable. And I also couldn't sit. And to me, I was told that it was going to take 8 to 12 months to get my spine back, to feeling normal and being able to sit. And I was just I can't do any of it. And I also, I feel like anybody with injury, especially when you're not moving, you get real depressed. And so already being an artist, because I know every single artist, probably every single person at some point battles with some I'm going to quit this. I'm done. I want to give up. I want to throw it all in. And at that point, it really just felt super defeating. I had been working so hard to finish this third chapter of Heavy, which I finished the second one. I had already coordinated about 100 people on this third chapter of this album. So I was working on that coordination. I can't get up and play my piano. I'm having to do everything. I'm a single mom. And at the time, my 8-year-old son helped me get up and move places. I felt pitiful. I mean, I was also really depressed too. And so for me, it was I needed to close the pressure of singing off because I didn't know how to tell people that I was injured and I couldn't do this right now. And I think that's definitely what I was going through at the time. My injury is healed and I'm back in the gym and I'm back sitting my ass down on a stool playing piano again. But I mean, it's even taken time for me now to come back. The injury and the recovery has taken a long time. And that's just something that I had to deal with. But at the time, I make this public announcement that I'm quitting. But yeah, that's what that was about. I got really fucked up.
Well, that would explain why December 14th, 2022, you played another show at an Index of Music where you said you got your energy back.
Yes. Yes. I'm saying, you gotta vibe with the artist because the artists be all over the place. Sometimes we forget that, sometimes I relate so many things to being an artist because obviously that's what I'm here and talking about music, but a lot of that is just also this is me and it's just also human advice. Sometimes we do need people to clap for us and tell us that we do need reassurance, sometimes, but we have to be willing to show up to get that, so the part of me showing up, it's yes, it's my last performance. Yes, I'm dramatic and yes, this hurts. But sometimes I need reminders. It's not always easy to just tell yourself every day that you're great. And sometimes we don't realize what that rejuvenation and that energy charge feel like when we get that. So it was definitely, I'm glad that I went because I remember that horror then too, being I'm going to cancel this. I'm not going to show. I'm notorious at that. I'm really good at being you know what? I'm a mom. Bye. And when I don't feel like wanting to get up because I already want to feel like I want to quit and I want to sit in my sulking. And so, I'm so proud of myself and glad that in that moment I did get myself to go up. I did get exactly what I needed, not what I thought I wanted, but what I really needed. Just some reassurance that and how it feels and me being me. I think that was a big part of it too. Is as I appreciate it, if you appreciate what I'm bringing, but it is never for anybody but me to be me.
May 5th, 2023, you posted a cover of the song Water Under the Bridge by Adele. What about that song really resonated with you?
Oh, I love that song deeply, forever. So Adele is like, I love Adele. My dad and I love Adele. My dad and I have bonded over Adele. But this song, Water Under the Bridge, it's the lyrics, you know, if you're gonna let me down gently. I love that. I love the way she sings it, and I love the way that it can be broken down. And at that place where I was in my life, everything that I post is like, oh, you were hot on emotion. You don't, it's so raw with me. If I'm posting something, it's probably because I'm in the emotion right then and there. And then I'm like, well, I already posted it. I'm over it, you know, later. But yeah, at that point, I wasn't really sure what was going on in like my relationship and shit. And that song, Adele, is like my number one. If things are rocky in my relationship, if things are rocky in my dream world, and if I just need to like kind of really be sad and be there, or be like, yes, it's gonna be Adele, it's gonna be Sam Smith, it's gonna be our Lissa, it's gonna be one of those three. It's gonna be, I mean, it could be Sam Cooke too. But yeah, I love that song, and I love what that song means. That song and Set Fire to the Rain. I don't know if you know this, but fun fact, Adele actually wrote the song Set Fire to the Rain, not because of like any real relationship shit. I'm a little, but it was chord because she was trying to light a cigarette in the rain after an argument. And I don't know, stuff like that really resonates with me, because it does, because I'll be like sitting here. I have a song on my first album called Wine Glass, where I wrote after I found out that my son's father had like knocked somebody else up, and I was just completely drunk in my living in my kitchen with like one of my girlfriends drinking a bottle of wine, and it was exactly as to T as the song is. So I kind of just feel like Water Under the Bridge is like one of those songs too. Adele's one of those songwriters. She's going to give you the whole story about how she felt and everything in that moment. All emotion on the table, all cards. And I feel like that's one of those songs. That's just like an all the cards song. Like, hey.
Let's take a peek at your YouTube channel. It looks like your YouTube channel was created January 12th, 2021.
I'm terrible at using my YouTube channel. Horrible. But yes, that's when it was created.
March 7th, 2022, you released your one-take video, That's What You Said. Where was that one filmed?
Oh, that was so much fun. So that was actually filmed by Alwa Gordon, and that was filmed right outside the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Yeah, at night, right outside the casino arcade, right there on the corner. It's funny because I got the beat the day before. I wrote the song the day of. I went to record it that night with Alwa, and then he was like, cool, we're done. Let me grab this camera and we're going to go record it. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, let's go right now. So that was all done in one day. And then I was like, okay, I guess I should like put this out now. I am trying. That is a big goal for my 2024, is to do better with my social media, my videos. I have been an artist for a long time who did not want anything to do with videos. A big part of this had to do with like, I've been a big advocate. I don't want you to see me. I want you to hear me. I've been a big advocate on feeling that we spend a lot of time looking at people, and that sometimes really makes it hard for us to listen to people. I mean that in both positive ways and negative ways. And so I really wanted to be a different artist for like the longest time, where I was like, I don't want videos. I don't want to be looked at, you know? I want to be heard. I also felt like the way that I look, and because of the way I felt about look, not only just being Black, but I like struggled with weight or just anything in general, just being somebody who you didn't think people wanted to look at, that it would stop people from listening to me. And which is what I really wanted, you know? At the end of the day, I don't really want you to look at me. You know, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but like that's not really what I wanted at all. I wanted to be heard. That's what I think most people want. And hearing me, then you see me, you know? So it's like I have a completely different stance on what it looks to be look like. But yeah, I put that video, but Alwa, who is, you know, who I've worked well with and has seen me, he also did my most recent video, and we're shooting one this week coming up as well for new stuff that is dropping, because I have a whole bunch of new stuff dropping 2024. Yeah, he just picked the camera up and he was like, let's go, friend, one of my best friends. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna trust you, let's do it. And I liked it, and it's great, but I didn't do it. This is like, you know, this is me being poor at YouTube and social media, that I didn't push it well at all. I never do, because I'm always just kind of like a lazy artist with that. So we actually are recreating that video this year, and we are redropping it and doing all new cool stuff with new push. I'm really excited for that, so I can't wait for you to check it out.
Perfect. And then the second video is December 18th, 2023, Quality Time.
Yeah.
So you are planning on releasing more of these videos. Are the videos that you're doing also going to be one-take videos?
Yes. So for all of the old stuff, so the song Quality Time is a song that was on my first album. And I have so much material that I haven't realized. So I'm in the process of finishing Heavy Chapter 3 this year, along with 2 other really cool projects that are coming up. But in this time, in terms of visuals, I'm doing this one take videos of visuals for like all my old stuff. So I have 2 albums. My first album, Alexandra, and then the second one, Heavy Chapter 1, is out. And so I'm gonna just do one take videos for kind of like this year. And we'll be dropping one a month. And then I also, on top of dropping one a month of old visuals, will be dropping new songs from Heavy Chapter 2, which has actually been done for like a year and a half. I've just had it sitting in a vault, already paid for, ready to distribute. Don't ask me why. It's like some weird artist complex that I'm going through. But this year I'm going to release it. So I'll be dropping one new song from this new album. This new album, Heavy Chapter 2, has 12 songs on it total. It's a completely different feel. I'm off my piano. These were all freestyle. They bring my hip hop, my New York hip hop vibes, my freestyle flow. It completely changes from like the first 2 albums and puts me in kind of like a new genre and a new feel, new upbeat, and so do the 2 other projects. So those will be cool to drop as songs. The songs that we drop this year will have some actual music videos that are in the time being. It would just be the one take videos from old content that will also drop. So each month you'll get a video of old content in one take and a new song from a new chapter. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Nice. So let's take a look at your discography. Looks like January 1st, 2019, you released the album Alexandria, which consists of Suffocation, Boys Will Be Boys, Quality Time, Home, Curtain Call, Wine Glass, Baggage Claim, Worth It, Sway, Sweet Love, Armor, and Listen.
Yes.
What was your process for advertising that one? That one came before the pandemic and before Instagram posts and before your YouTube.
That came before everything. So when I wrote the album, that came out January 1st, 2019. On January 1st, 2018, I made a bet with my cousin Jasmine that I could write an album in 1 whole year. I was just like, I bet I could do it. Now, just going a little back before then, about like the day after Christmas, this is like I was super overweight. I was like 200 pounds after having a kid, right? The day after Christmas, I like got out of my bed and fell and just like completely tore my fucking meniscus. Right. So I was like just sitting. Again, here we are sitting. I didn't have anything to do. And I was a single mom. I never thought that I would have time as a single mom to have time where I'm being paid from disability and like, have to be at work. So I made a bet with my cousin on New Year's that I could write an album in 1 year. And she was like, yeah, bet, do it. So I started writing this album, which was Alexandra, in the year of 2018. And I was like, okay, well, what do you have to do? Like, I didn't even know what to do, but I realized like I needed to be critiqued. Like I was looking for feedback. So I started joining like random live stream shit. Like I would just find random apps and I would just go on them and live stream. And I would just play my piano because I wanted to see also if I could handle criticism. And I ended up being like a very high top streamer on some of these things. It's like, what is like Party Next Door and fucking like, I got on them and I was on them for a year straight. And so on this whole time, I'm doing like the challenges. I'm very social. I'm very good at talking to people. I'm very good at communicating. So I was like talking to everybody and I would get on lives and within like 10 minutes, I would have like 500 people on there and it just kept progressing and progressing before it was like 20,000 people. And it was really just like me talking shit with people. And anytime anybody my line and negative, I would just start singing. I'd be like, we don't got time for that. You can be in here, but we don't got hate, I also have this core belief that as hateful as we are, when we hear something good, like good music or good food, it's like kind of being a kid who's having a tantrum. You want to be stingy about it, but you can't deny it. You can't deny good shit, soul good shit. When I realized like, hey, people actually like that. I mean, people are like sending me money for like my songs. I remember a girl on my live when I would just be practicing and I would be on there for hours. I'd be like my asleep. I had nothing to do. I knew nobody. So I had hours. I had time. I had all the time in the fucking world. And so I would just log on to these lives and asking them for interacting with them. And I ended up like writing songs also like on live. And the only reason I actually made it into a tangible physical copy was because people would ask me. People were like asking me from like around the world and shit to like send them my album. And they had been following me. And some of these people still to this day, who like were part of like the beginning of this, still follow me. They still follow me. They bought my album. I have like still some of these exact same fans have walked with me through and through. And that was really the beginning of that advertisement, was the fact that I just did everything straight off live. You know, I'd go to practice rooms for like 8 hours. And I mean, it feels like you're by yourself because everybody's just green and nobody's really bugging you. And I would just there for like 8 hours, like plucking away these songs, messing up and everything. I was just very authentically me, and I think people really appreciated that. But the live stream was really it, and I actually ended up selling out my whole entire album and making back not only what I paid to create the album, and some and change. I have 2 albums left. I made a total of 500. And they were all gone within that first year. And that was just straight support off the lives. And I probably really wouldn't have made them, you know, if I didn't have all these people like constantly asking me for them. And that was how that averaged for the first one. And I was like, cool, like this is a thing I can do. And it wasn't anything that I was like really trying to pursue. You know, it wasn't anything that I was like, this is serious and I really want to do this. It was just like, I'm going to do it because like I gave myself a challenge and I can like, I'm going to do it and like, we'll see what happens. So there was no even real need for me to like really try to push it or like just try to, you know, I was just like, fuck it, if it happens. It's when you start thinking about shit that you start fucking up, you know. I'm not necessarily fucking up, but overthinking, but that's at least for me, you know, once I start like having to think about marketing, having to think about this, I'm like this. But that was so natural and just so like, yeah, I'm doing this. So let me join. Let me have y'all join. That's how that marketing went. This marketing for the next Heavy Chapter 2 that's coming out and everything else is a little different because I have a phenomenal team that I've built up since 2019. So I'm not the only person involved in the marketing strategy of this. But the first one was super organic. And I love that for that being how I started. It was by the people, for the people.
Let's see. And then your next one was released February 22nd,
yes,
2022, which was Heavy Chapter 1, which consists of Talking
It's talking shit. But my son asked me not to put the T.
Talking Shit Live, Broken, Stay With Me, Hourglass, Are You Okay, Untitled, Arrow, Pardon, Circles, So Damn Good, Energy, Dreams, Sidewalks. So it looks like for 2 of those songs, you actually either collaborated or featured people. Mm-hmm. On Broken, it was Blank Metaphor, yes. And on Dreams, it was Peyton the Illustrator.
Yes.
How did you go about, for lack of a better word, recruiting these artists for these songs?
Well, Blank Metaphor is here in Santa Cruz. He is a phenomenal poet and musician himself. It's another good one everybody can check out. He is a phenomenal poet. He has a book, and I actually met him through a good friend of mine who is another phenomenal poet. Her name is Raggedy Andy, and she's phenomenal. But I met him in a kava coffee shop, and I heard him speak, and I loved the resonance in his voice. And I mean, I'm like that, you know, it's like somebody who's good with smells. Oh, if I love the tonality of your voice, man, we could talk all day, baby. That's like sweet cherries. And I love the resonance of his voice. I love the tone. I love the pitch. I loved how he sounded. Ooh, he sounded so good. And then I read his book and he's like, I got this book. I paid for this book. And then I'm sitting there reading his book and I'm like, this guy is just as sad and poetic as I am. And I loved his words. I loved the imagery that he created with his words. I loved him as an artist, but but I'm very picky as to like what really pings my ear and what really grasped me. And he did. And I actually sent him a plethora. I sent him like a list of like voice memos that I had like in my phone that I just were unfinished piano shit, you know? And I sent him a bunch of them. I sent him like 5 or 6 of them. And the one that he picked was this little humming part that I had of song called Broken. And had no intention of ever finishing that song. Like, okay, and that's how that worked. He was so receptive. It's so easy to work with. He was actually the first one. That was the first song I finished on that album. And it was beautiful creating with him. He wrote, I love that song so much. I love the way he sounds. I love the way he twists. I love the whole thing. So that was pretty easy. And then Peyton, the illustrator, is actually my son. Is my son. So that one was real easy, but also it's kind of hard. It was a little different too. So the song Dreams, I actually wrote that song completely because my son, after I dropped my first album, this was like literally like the next day after I dropped it. I'm sitting in my living room and I tell this story every single time I perform. I don't think if you've seen my performance, you could probably say this story over and over again. But I was sitting in my living room and my son was watching Alice in Wonderland, or he's watching some shit that had a lot of colors in it, whatever. And he turns to me and he says, "Mom, have you ever seen," he said, "do you want to see rainbows of colors that never existed before?" And I was so perplexed because I was like, yo, this is so deep. And you're like 5. And it didn't make any sense to me, but I ran with it. I literally got up and I was like, yes. And I went to the piano and I used that first line and the beginning of the song. And it is, "Do you want to see rainbows of colors that never existed before?" It's because my son asked me that question. So I only thought it was fitting that he was the one who sang on it with me. And it was a really cool experience too. As a mom, as an artist, so many different things. I have this awesome, very recording of my son's voice. But he really was the inspiration of it. And anytime I do a show too, I make sure before my last show, I make sure everybody pauses and takes a moment to give appreciation and clap for my son, because as much as this is my life and I appreciate everything, I have to sacrifice time with my son as a single mom in general. I have to sacrifice it. And so I want to make sure that my son knows that if I'm someplace that he's not, that he's loved, and everybody who's around me, who's supporting me, is also supporting and loving him. And so I take time in my shows to make sure that people clap for Peyton's mom being here. We got to give grace to him. And so he was easy to do it because he was right there. But he sat on my lap actually when I recorded this, and we all did it live. And he's sitting on my lap. Kind of didn't want to record it. I sang my part and he sang my part with me, and it was just us in the room. And he had his little iPad tablet at the time in his hand. He was obsessed with this one Optimus Prime game. And so if you listen to the song through, I think it's halfway through, you'll hear in the back Optimus Prime say, "Get ready." And because halfway through the song, he kind of just closed up and he ended up hitting the tablet, and so there's the "get ready" thing, ended up hitting the button for it. And everything in the recording of it is completely genuine. They asked me, after we were done, do you want to take it out? I was like, nope, I want you to lift his voice. I want it to come out more. And I'm a very raw artist like that. I want to be as is, was, no filters, what was real and present. So, it only took me 9 months to create that artist, but I did it.
So let's see. April 15th, 2023, you released the single "Don't Walk Away."
Yes.
And then October 13th, 2023, there's the single "Feeling Good." And it looks like there are several people also on that album, or on that single.
Feel Good.
Feel Good, yes.
Yes, I did that with my good friend Rory Lynch, who is also another local musician here in Santa Cruz. He kind of does some folk stuff. He works with another artist, Andy Pancakes, who is also a local artist here. They're both great guys. Andy plays just about everything. Rory is a phenomenal singer-songwriter, guitarist, but then also is just a phenomenal composer. I think he also picks up a few other string instruments. Great guys. They play all around the Bay Area themselves as well. The song "Feel Good" actually came because bringing it back to everything is connected, bringing it back to Invertebrate Record Studios and the pandemic. I actually met Rory during the pandemic, and we were all in this super awesome row of garage storage. Storage units, but everybody has converted these storage units into studios. And Rory had a studio, and Invertebrate Records had a studio there. So I had met everybody on the trip. And one day, this is after I had broken up with my fiance at the time, right before COVID. And they were my boys. Those are my boys, 100%. Those are the brothers I never had. We were the lost children of fucking COVID together making music. And one day, Rory just had this loop going. All he had was this guitar loop. I just went into the studio, and I try to be optimistic. I'm a sad girl, but I try. And it was like one of those moments I wanted to feel good. I heard his loop, and I just started freestyling. And I was already on live on my phone, so that's why you can hear the whole thing how it comes out. And Rory liked the feel good loop that I made and the way I freestyled on it, and he was like, "Yo, can we turn this into a real song?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me credit and let's make it happen." And we did. And it's just a feel good song. You know, it was like one of those things that you don't really need to. Sometimes you create, you want to create shit and you want it down to the perfection line. You want all the synths in there. You want every note. And some shit is just like you made some good shit with your friends and you just wanted to feel good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put it out there. And that was just one of those genuine raw songs that was just like, man, this just feels good. And I made it with my friends when I was sad. And it just literally makes you feel good. Like nobody was caring about how their notes were or if the harmonics were on point. No, we were just feeling good and being with our friends. And that's exactly what we wanted people to feel when we heard the song, man. That just feel good. Feel good about today. Feel good about being here. You know, there's so many things that we don't have control over, but you know, things we do, we can feel good about them. And you should feel good. That was a great song. And they're great. And those are two other great artists that I implore people to check out as well.
So thank you for being our guest here on the What's in Your Case podcast. Do you have anything you'd like to promote? Or you can just tell the listeners where they can find your content.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on here. I'm to know me and listening to music, so thank you so much. I urge everybody I listed some great artists in here. Tom and Pursley, I suggest you Invertebrate Records, Alwa Gordon, Mike Molda, Creative Minds Audio Visual, Rory Lynch, Andy Pancakes, Mammoth Dubs, another amazing dubstep producer, QE DJ Flows, and Misha L. All amazing. So I want to shout out my people because those people just really keep me rocking. They're also amazing artists. But then in terms of me, Alexandra the Author, I have awesome new music coming out. Heavy Chapter 2 will be dropping this year. I'm going to kick off the first drop single January 22nd, 2024 with the release of Good Times. And that's getting us on our East Coast, our East Coast wave of hip hop right there. And then you can continue to either follow me on Instagram, Alexandra the Author, or you can look up my music on any streaming platform. I'm on all streaming platforms except for SoundCloud. I'm sorry. So you can find all my music there. You can also find me on Facebook, Alexandra the Author. You can find TikTok. I don't use it as much, but all platforms, pretty much Alexandra the Author, you can find me. And all my links for all my music is on there. Same with YouTube. And I am constantly sharing what updates, performances are happening. And if you want me to come to a location near you, please feel free to send me a message. I'm extremely receptive and open and always looking for people to collaborate with, talk with, create with, or just people. And again, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Appreciate y'all so much, and I wish y'all nothing but the best and a kick-ass year.